Welcome everybody back into NerdSesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And you already know the drill. We're going to be talking about all the NFL action that we saw today. And we had some great games today, Logan. Our nightcap Sunday Night Football, Bengals Chargers, was unbelievable. Almost an insane successful comeback effort from the Bengals. That game was decided in the final minute. Your Steelers had a huge win over the Baltimore Ravens. And my Buffalo Bills had a huge win over the Kansas City Chiefs in what many are calling the game of the year. Many were calling before it kicked off. I would say it lived up to the hype. Logan, how big is this Buffalo win, and what did you take away from it most?
It's very big. I mean, historically speaking, the Chiefs had the longest win streak since the 2011 Packers consecutively. That streak is now snapped. They had 15 straight coming into this one, but I think it says a lot about this Buffalo Bills team as a whole. And I agree with you. You made a video afterwards, after the game. I think the Bills are the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC. And I had been standing pat that
Come to Papa.
I thought that Baltimore, hold up, I'm going to get on your ass about Steelers Ravens. Hold your horses.
Okay, no. And I deserve it. I deserve it. I'm just enjoying this right now.
Oh, no, I'm very happy that I was wrong about this, too. I don't like the Chiefs. I've had the Chiefs number one in my power rankings for a long time, but it's kind of like any other juggernaut of any sport, right? Like the Patriots. I love seeing them fall. And I quite enjoy being wrong about this game. I love Josh Allen. I like watching the Bills play. And I love that anytime the underdog can come out with a win. And I think the Bills were the underdog coming into this game. They're down key personnel. Shout out to Amari Cooper stepping up and making big-time plays. They're without Keon Coleman in this one. They're going up against one of the handful of best defenses in the NFL today, and they balled out. The deck was stacked against them, and Josh delivered. A key component to why I think that the Bills are the biggest threat to the Chiefs is that I trust Josh Allen to perform in big moments more than I do Lamar Jackson. Nobody has played Patrick Mahomes better in head-to-head matchups. While he's 4-4 against them, guess what, guys? Josh Allen's the only quarterback in the NFL with 4 more wins against Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of that comes down to their success on third downs. On third downs, Josh was 5 of 9 for 81 yards. He also had 4 carries for 12 yards. He also has a defensive pass interference to a ball on Amari Cooper that doesn't show up. They were 8 of 13 on third downs when they put the ball in Josh's hands. And, of course, he converts the game-winning touchdown on 4th and 2 for a 26-yard rushing touchdown. The deck was stacked against Josh today, and he delivered. In previous head-to-head matchups, Carson, I'd argue that Josh has played as well or better than Patrick Mahomes. The numbers are comparable, but Josh has more total yards per game. He has more touchdowns than Mahomes, and he has less turnovers. And another part of my key component to the Bills being the biggest threat to Kansas City in the AFC, not only do they win the head-to-head matchup today, I think they're a more complete team than Baltimore, and I can confidently say that after today. Mahomes was legitimately bothered by the pressure that Buffalo was bringing today. That makes a meaningful difference to me. They bothered him. And the most important part is that Buffalo is just better in the secondary. I've been waiting for Baltimore's secondary to come along. I haven't all year with Buffalo. They got two of the best not two of the best corners individually, but arguably the best corner tandem in football.
Trio. Yeah, they have 3 dogs at corner: Benford, Douglas, and Taron Johnson.
Yeah, and Taylor Rapp's a stud at safety too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Bills are a more complete team than Baltimore top to bottom. I think that Baltimore's best offensive punch can be better than Buffalo's, and that's what I had been holding out for. But Baltimore's defense has real problems. I don't think Buffalo's defense has problems. And then I trust Josh more than I trust Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry it took me this long to come around to it, Carson, but I'm there. Okay. And don't get me wrong. I don't think the gap is, and I know you're probably going to disagree with this, with Baltimore's problems top to bottom. I don't think there's a big gap between the top 3 teams. I think with the punch, Baltimore has the biggest hole out of any of these teams by far. But I don't think the gap is really, super large between them because of the Lamar and Derrick Henry quotient. That being said, Buffalo has separated themselves.
Thank you, dude. This just makes my heart sing to hear you say this because, Logan, you and I are often very like-minded, but it was very contentious this past week when I said I thought the Bills were the better team. You called me a lily-livered ninny muggins. You were laughing. You called me all sorts of nasty things, and I said, look, man.
A cotton-headed ninny muggins, too.
All sorts of terrible things. It really shouldn't be repeated. And I said, yeah, obviously the Ravens kicked the Bills' ass. They kicked the Bills' ass with a very injured defense, with an offense that doesn't look like it does today in terms of personnel when the Bills are healthy. But it was also just a really tough matchup, right? The Bills' run defense is an issue. It was especially bad without Taron Johnson and without Terrell Bernard and without Matt Milano. And the Ravens are an amazing rushing attack. But my point was, we can talk about that matchup and how that might favor the Ravens. In a vacuum, I felt that the Bills were the better football team. And when we talk about matchups against the Kansas City Chiefs, I absolutely think that the Bills are more capable of winning. We've seen it time and again, dude. I mean, you said it, 4-4 since 2020. Only other team with multiple wins against the Chiefs outside of their own division is the Cincinnati Bengals. So nobody has a more proven track record of beating the Chiefs. And I know what you can say, oh, it's only the regular season. That's fine, dude. Nobody's beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs, right? Except for the Bengals, actually. But the Bengals just aren't nearly that caliber of team right now because their defense is horrible. So you can try to diminish it, but they repeatedly show that they have a better formula than anybody else. And in the playoffs, they've come extremely close over and over again. And Josh has been outstanding in those spots. And I do think that Josh today established himself as the MVP frontrunner. I don't think that it's unreasonable for people to have Lamar. I still think that Lamar clearly has the best statistical case. But to me, this was the definition of an MVP performance from Josh Allen, because you're shorthanded, down two of your best weapons with both Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman out. You're facing the only undefeated team in football, the two-time reigning champs, the best team in football, what I would argue is the best defense in football. And under those circumstances, Josh was incredible. And he wasn't done favors in this game, not just because they're shorthanded in terms of receiving personnel. The Bills really, really wanted to run the ball on early downs. It felt like they were very aware of some of the limitations they had in terms of skill position talent, their ability to win on the outside. And they were like, okay, we're playing ball control football on early downs, but they couldn't run the ball on the Chiefs. The Chiefs have probably the best run defense in football. Running backs for the Bills carried 19 times for 29 yards in this game. So repeatedly, it came down to, between these two quarterbacks, who's going to be better on third down, who can pull off more third down heroics. And that's just what Josh delivered over and over and over again. Bills go 9 of 15 on third down. And this is an incredibly difficult defense to face on third down, not just because it's a great group, but particularly because you know that Spags is going to dial up the heat. He is going to send some heinous blitzes your way. And Josh was unbelievable under those circumstances. Numerous instances, right? An all-out blitz. He gets the touchdown out to Curtis Samuel early in this game. As he's getting hit, stands in the pocket and just throws a beautiful ball to Amari Cooper on the sideline, who also made a great catch. So situationally, he was excellent, and he was better than Patrick Mahomes. And included in that, I mean, he converts the huge fourth down to end this game, and the Bills are 12 of 14 on fourth down this season. I love that they went for it. I love that they went for the jugular. That's what you do when you have a quarterback of Josh Allen's caliber. And when you're facing a quarterback of Patrick Mahomes, like, don't be content with, okay, well, we're forcing them to get a touchdown. No, they've done that too many times before. Trust your offense. Trust the best player on your football team, one of the best football players on the planet. Go out there, win the game. That's what they did. So he outplayed Mahomes. He dictated the huge moments of this game, and he got the better of this great Chiefs defense. And he's just more capable of doing that than anybody else. In these head-to-head matchups against the Chiefs, Josh averages 314 yards per game. He has 22 total touchdowns. He has 5 turnovers. That's across 8 games. I mean, that is unbelievable, especially because nobody's hung 30 on the Chiefs in the regular season in more than 2 full years at this point. So he's just proven time and again that the Bills are the best candidate to slay the dragon. And Josh Allen is ultimately the biggest reason for that, because he can look Patrick Mahomes in the eye, go head to head with him. And particularly, I just think when you look at how effectively the Chiefs are built to defend the run right now, that's a problem for the Ravens. They're an amazing, amazing rushing attack. But if you are going to force the opposing team to beat you through the air more than they're maybe accustomed to, then I'll just take Josh in those circumstances every day of the week over Lamar. And they remain the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC, even as, Logan, we've said many times over, everybody thought it was the trendy, it was the fun, it was the flirty pick in the offseason to say, yeah, the Bills are going to fall off. The Bills are actually rebuilding, if you guys didn't know, because they lost Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. They lost 2 dinosaurs at safety, and they traded Stephon Diggs.
Bro.
And they lost Stephon Diggs. And how could you ever replace him when he was outproduced by Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir in the second half of the season and was really, really bad for that locker room? How could they ever overcome that, Logan? Well, they have. And they're sitting here right now. They're a top 3 scoring offense. They're 9-2. They just became the first team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in a full season's worth of games. And that's why Josh is the MVP to me. He doesn't have Lamar's raw numbers, which are unbelievable. They're historic. But without a true number one, with a banged up receiving core in recent weeks, he has consistently righted the ship for this Buffalo team. He has eliminated negative plays. The Bills have the second lowest sack rate in football. They have the third fewest turnovers. That is Josh Allen. And you look up and you look at where they're at right now compared to preseason expectations. For most people, I was very high on this team. You were high on this team, but I think that is wildly impressive. So to me, when you can consistently overcome, you can consistently deliver. And in a game like this, the game of the year, you can do what nobody else in football has been able to do while you are significantly shorthanded. That's what the MVP does. And that's what Josh Allen does.
Yeah, and you know what Lamar doesn't? You know what Josh doesn't have that Lamar has?
Derrick Henry.
Flaws that you can exploit. No, I mean, he doesn't have Derrick Henry, but I mean, that's my big takeaway too, is that like, you got to tip your cap to the Steelers defense because they do this every time that they play Lamar, but it's like, what's Lamar's weakness? Well, when you bottle him up in the pocket, when you make him scramble and buy all that time, and then make him make throws downfield, turn him into a passer. Like, again, and I'm not saying that like Lamar has come leaps and bounds as a passer, and he will probably get just over criticized after this loss because this is a track record in, this is like 6 or 7 games of track records, and you include the playoffs and some letdowns like that, where in big games, he doesn't step up to the plate. And when there is a formula that works against him, there is no answer and there is no formula to Josh Allen. And don't get me wrong, any quarterback is susceptible to playing bad games, right? Josh Allen has a complete dud of a game against the Houston Texans, but it's like there is a game plan that you can tailor and you can build up to counteract Lamar Jackson. There is no game plan that works against Josh Allen. And I just feel so vindicated, Carson. I feel so justified after another game like this. Like, we have been on our soapbox for 2 years now, crying to the audience and yelling at the masses that the gap isn't that large between Mahomes and Josh Allen. And you should give Josh Allen his flowers, even though he doesn't have the playoff success or the accolades. I feel really vindicated after this one, and I do think he's the MVP. And it's for that reason. It's for one, that he doesn't have the exploitable flaws that Lamar has, but also he doesn't have the stinkers that the Ravens have this year. The Ravens crumbled against the Las Vegas Raiders this year in crunch time. The Ravens, and I don't think this loss was Lamar's fault per se. They didn't lose to the Cleveland Browns, right? The Ravens drubbed the Bills in their head-to-head matchup. That happened, but they also don't have the low points that the Ravens do this year. So I'm with you, man. When you compound all the factors right now, Josh is my MVP. And could Josh have a stinker the rest of the way? Could Lamar go crazy? Sure. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way. But that's when we're working in hypotheticals. The reality right now is that Josh is the MVP, and this is the biggest statement win of the year, bar none. Man. I don't think there's another game that comes up to this.
No, I completely agree. And look, the MVP race has been back and forth between these two guys all year. End to end, it is going to be between these two guys, and there very well could be more changes in the tides. But I just don't think that we've seen a performance with this sort of stakes against this caliber of a defense all year. And frankly, right now, the biggest, most impressive thing that you can do in football is beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And if there are any Chiefs fans who are annoyed that it's like, oh my God, everybody is acting as though this is the biggest thing in the world that we lost, and they want to hit the smug, oh, congratulations, Buffalo, you won your regular season Super Bowl. Like, all right, man, fair enough. But like, maybe just take that as a sign of respect that everybody is aware that you guys are a dynasty and the best team in football and 2-time reigning Super Bowl champs for a reason. And like, nobody's done this in a year, bro. So it is a big deal. And when the same team's done it 4 times in 5 years and nobody else has done that, like, it does matter. Eventually the Kansas City Chiefs will lose in the NFL playoffs again, Logan. And in the AFC, there's not a better candidate to deliver them that loss than the Buffalo Bills. And we can talk about Josh all day. And he was phenomenal. And wins aren't a quarterback stat, right? But he is fundamentally the reason this team is 9-2. And I'm with you on that point about the Ravens, right? The Ravens have had real low points that haven't all been on their offense. A lot of it has been on their defense, but also in some of those big moments, they haven't executed offensively. And their offense is clearly far more loaded with talent, right? I mean, the Bills averaging 29 points per game is ridiculous. That's not to say that their receiving core is crazy in Baltimore, but these receiving cores are comparable, and the Ravens have Derrick Henry, which is a big old difference. But it was more than that. I mean, the Bills were just better on both sides of the ball in this game. They really dictated. A lot of that was the offense, but they led for 48 of 60 minutes in this game. They had 107 more total yards. And we have to give props to the defense, man, because I thought they were so sound in this game. They kept Pat in the pocket. They were excellent in coverage, right? The corners are the greatest strength of this defense, even playing more man than usual. They were really successful there. They had a couple of clutch pass rushes on third down. They really X'd out Travis Kelce. He was not a factor in this game. They didn't allow explosive plays. The only one that should have been an explosive play was when Xavier Worthy just couldn't get his second foot in. But hey, that doesn't count on the stat sheet. They weren't great against the run, but they were solid. They just kept everything in front of them. They made Kansas City work for every drive. And that group is playing really well right now. They're 8th in points allowed per drive on the season. And now that they're mostly healthy, still don't have Matt Milano, but he's practicing now. He's going to come back soon. They're in a groove. In fact, when Taron Johnson plays, who's their best healthy defensive player, I would say, they're 7-0, and Milano is coming back. So that's the big thing versus the Ravens. And the reason that I've been leaning on the Bills, it's that defensive advantage, which I do think is sizable. Not to say the Bills defense is perfect, but it's a lot better than the Ravens. And then I do trust Josh more, and I specifically think he fares better in this matchup against Kansas City, as we've seen time and time again. They're top 3 team in football, man. The Bills are awesome, and a lot of people wanted to write them off. A lot of people have been very dismissive of their success, but this is a ridiculous 5-year run. I mean, the Chiefs have won 60 games in these 5 years. The Bills have won 57. Nobody else is above 50. Like, it is a really consistent bar of excellence that they have set that is all coming from the top down with Josh Allen. But also, I mean, shout out to the defenses that they've turned out. Good defenses at the least, year after year. And I just think it's really annoying when we go like all sports nihilism and it's like, oh, none of that matters because they haven't won a Super Bowl. Like, no, dude. First of all, the window is still wide open for them to do so. And they continue to prove themselves as an elite football team in a way nobody other than Kansas City has done in this last half decade.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit's working their way up there, but I get what you mean with sustained
But not for
success.
5 years.
Yeah.
They were in the gutter 4 years ago.
I'd say Baltimore's up there too. Baltimore's been really, really consistent.
But I mean, they have 2 playoff wins.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's probably number 2. I'd also say Dallas has been consistently good. Like, there's been some great teams, but Buffalo's.
But I mean, Buffalo is both the second best regular season team,
and it's because of Josh Allen. It's because of Josh Allen and nothing else. And I mean, like, Josh Allen is not only made up for this defense in their low points, he's the reason that Sean McDermott has a freaking job right now. Like, Josh is the reason this thing goes. And again, he's the reason that this is the 3rd best team in football, that they're the 2nd best threat to the Chiefs. And I'm going to say it right now. I really don't. If the Bills falter in the playoffs and they end up losing, I don't want this revisionist history where, like you said, the nihilism, the none of this matters, none of this meant anything. It does mean something. Josh Allen deserves all the credit that nobody wants to give him, and the Bills are a real deal. I'm just laughing. I am laughing at all of you Bills haters, all of you people in the preseason that reacted to their old ass losses on defense. I'm just laughing, man. It's really funny to me.
It is, dude. And again, I mean, you're doing this shorthanded, right? Kincaid's going to get back out there. Keon's going to get back out there. We'll see what this offense looks like fully healthy. It's been pretty awesome not fully healthy. So it's a really good win for the Bills. On the flip side of this, for the Chiefs, I don't really have a ton to say. Like, I didn't think they were bad in this game. I just thought that they were outplayed by a team that is capable of outplaying them. I guess the one concern you would say is, like, this isn't an overly explosive offense. It's a good offense, but they haven't necessarily been tested in terms of keeping up with an elite group like Buffalo. They beat Baltimore, but they were able to contain Baltimore to 20 points in this game. Like, I guess the one question would be, okay, when you're facing a Buffalo or a team of that caliber that is also better defensively than Baltimore, can you go out there and can you get 30 plus in a big game? Can you erase bigger deficits quickly against a team like that? To be clear, I absolutely think the Chiefs can do all of those things, but they're certainly not as equipped to do them as they have been in years past when they had their absolute best offenses. So in this game, the answer to that was no, and I'm sure you'd prefer that Pat doesn't throw that pick on the opening drive. But the Chiefs, to me, are still the favorite in the AFC. I want to be clear about that. I just think the Bills are close, and I absolutely think the Bills can beat them. What's tough is just I think the Kansas City defense is unbelievable, and I called them the best defense in football. I got some pushback on that. That's been my stance basically throughout the year, at least that they've been a top 3 defense. I do think Pittsburgh makes a really strong case, but nothing in this game came easy for Buffalo. There was nothing that made me think like, okay, this Chiefs defense isn't as great as we've thought. They are a dominant unit. They're amazing against the run. They have a ferocious pass rush. They are the best coached defense, arguably, in football. And I think that the reaction to them losing one game kind of tells you all that you need to know about the standard that they've set. So the Chiefs are amazing. That goes without saying, but the Bills are really, really good, man. And I don't think they've gotten full credit for how good they really are.
I just don't think the Chiefs were good situationally today. Mahomes got outplayed by Josh pretty convincingly, and then the defense didn't step up in big moments the way they normally have, right? This team, the blocked kick from last week, right? The difference was in this game, in the biggest situation, they allowed Josh Allen to break off a 30-yard touchdown run. I mean, it's
no spy was crazy. No spy on 4th and 2 was crazy
with Josh. And I mean, he had already, and that's what I didn't get to, is that he had already converted a lot of, they were short yardage situations, sure, but he had already converted a lot of 3rd and shorts with his legs. You know what I mean? So that confused me. This guy is not falling. Mahomes got outplayed and the defense wasn't flawless situationally. Up to this point, Kansas City basically had been, right?
Yeah.
That's all the margins is to me. And I still do think they're the favorite, but they're susceptible, man. And they've played in a lot of tight ball games. Kansas City's luck was running short, dude. I mean, they flashed the stat up on the broadcast. They had won 12 of 15 games by 1 score, right? Yeah. This 15-game winning streak. And they had the lowest point differential. I mentioned the stat last week of any team that had been undefeated up to this point in the season. And they literally escaped by the hair on their chin last week against Denver. Mm-hmm. They were due. Like, I hate,
100%.
Going to a cliche, Kansas City was due, man.
They were. They're great. And they're amazing situationally. They're amazing in these clutch situations. They've been the best 3rd down offense in football. They've been great on 4th down offensively. They're great situationally defensively. They're professional winners. All that is true. And at the same time, you don't win 100% of your 1-score games. But this wasn't a 1-score game. I mean, they just got outplayed. This is a 2-score game. And they trailed for a vast majority of it.
I got to give you credit, too. I mean, you said it on the show. I know you picked the Chiefs on the show. Carson did say if he thought that certain guys were available. And you texted me pregame, too. I'm going to take the Bills. So
I didn't think Amari was going to play. I thought that they were going to be without 3 of the top 4. But I did say if they were healthy, if they had 2 or 3 of the top guys.
That ended up making the difference, right? I mean, Amari made some huge 100%. Plays in this game. So I'm very happy to be wrong, man. I love when a dragon gets laid, and I love watching Josh Allen go out there and ball like we know he can ball.
Absolutely. Shout out Curtis Samuel, too, dude. Curtis Samuel had to step up, getting involved in the screen game, had a couple big plays downfield. Just making the most of what you got out there if you're the Bills, as they've had to do a lot this year, and they've done so pretty damn well. Let's talk about the Steelers, Logan. They get a win over the Baltimore Ravens. As you hinted at earlier, I did not predict this. I thought that it was a very, very impressive win by Pittsburgh. Was it impressive enough for you to call the Steelers a contender, Logan?
No, it wasn't, unfortunately. Now,
I'm sorry to hear that.
I've been saying this all year long. This is the most complete Pittsburgh Steelers team since 2011 when the Steelers went to the Super Bowl, and I stand on that. Top to bottom, I think it's the most. I don't think the Steelers have any like gaping or glaring holes the way they have over the past decade. The timelines didn't work out. When we had the Killer Bees, the defense always was really bad on the back end. And right as the defense figured it out in the TJ Watt era, Big Ben retired, and we were handcuffed to Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. And so before I get into my spiel here, how do you guys like that? All you Steelers haters that said this was going to be Tomlin's first losing season and that we weren't going to get better after getting a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback and the most talented quarterback, or one of the most talented quarterbacks we've had post Big Ben. I hope you guys feel really stupid right now. It was asinine that we weren't going to get better after getting that kind of upgrade and getting the most competent offensive mind in our building and getting rid of Matt Canada. I just think it's funny. But the Steelers right now are allowing 16.2 points per game. It's second in the NFL. It's also the tied 13 fewest points per game allowed by a defense since 2010. This was a Ravens offense coming into this week, number 1 in points per game, number 1 in yards per game, number 1 in red zone percentage, number 4 in third down percentage. And the stat that you liked peddling before this game, they were number 1 in yards per play of any offense in NFL history. And this Steelers defense, who I do believe is the best in the NFL, held the Ravens to 16 points, and they held Lamar under 50% completion. This is the best defense of the TJ Watt era. This is the best offense post Big Ben. These are all things I've been saying since about week 3 of this season, when we had enough stuff on the Steelers to make a take about them. And again, the big difference is we have a quarterback that's competent offensively, and we have an offensive coordinator that's competent offensively. The Pittsburgh Steelers had been comically limited by imbeciles offensively. Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada. I mean, guys that should not have jobs in the NFL. And word to Pickett and Mason, they're good backups. Mitch Trubisky's not an NFL caliber quarterback, and Matt Canada isn't an NFL competent mind. And Russ isn't perfect. I think you see some of his flaws in this game. He is limited significantly athletically, and he is really conservative. The thing that frustrated me the most about Russell Wilson in this game and the Russell Wilson experience is sometimes he's too safe, but that is a beauty, right? Sometimes Mr. Trubisky will just fire a ball over the middle that has a 90% chance of getting intercepted. Russ is never going to do that. The big question after this game, as you lead this, is it going to translate to playoff success? I'm not moved. Unfortunately, as big of a Steelers fan and homer as I am, I'm not moved. Look, the Steelers are firmly planted in my top 10. This is a top 10 team in football. They deserve to be there.
Absolutely.
They're just not a real contender to me yet. And the big reason is they have to prove themselves in the red zone. 6 field goals is not going to win you a playoff game, and I get it. I was there 10 years ago or 8 years ago when they beat the Chiefs in a wild card game by kicking 6 field goals. It's not a recipe that's going to win you a playoff game in 2024. But again, this is the best Steelers team since 2011, the most complete team. They have the best defense in football, and they have a competent offense right now, and that's a really good formula. And they bottled the Ravens up in this one, but I still need to see more from the offense. But again, man, it says something that this is the best team, and this is the most likely team to win a playoff game. But I'll tell you teams that scare me.
Okay.
I'm scared of playing Baltimore again. I know we always play them really well. Baltimore still scares me. A lot of things had to break our way in this one. The turnover battle, Tucker crapping his pants in missing a bunch of field goals, right? I am scared of the Ravens. I am scared of the Chiefs. I am scared of the Bills. I am scared of the Chargers. I'm scared of a lot of teams that are just more volatile offenses than us, but the Steelers could win a playoff game. That being said, I don't know if I'd pick it.
I definitely think they can win a playoff game. I would say pretty confidently that they're the 4th best team in the AFC. I do still think the Ravens are better because of that offensive explosiveness. Right. I mean, you mentioned the things that had to go right for the Steelers today. And look, those things go right for the Steelers way more than they do for any other team.
Well, this game, yeah, I felt like that because it always happens against Baltimore, but you're 100% right.
It happens all the time, bro. I mean, the Steelers just have actual voodoo magic that I think probably needs to be investigated, but you can never underestimate the power of that, dude. I mean, this game was the epitome of it, right? You rip a ball out of Justice Hill's hand, and you have the 2 missed Tucker field goals. But I do think the Steelers are really good. So after KC, Buffalo, Baltimore, which has been my top 3 in the AFC since before the year, has been immutable. I think those teams are in a different tier. I'm going Pittsburgh over everybody else because this defense is unbelievable. And there's a very strong argument that it's the best in the NFL. Nobody has made Baltimore look like that all year offensively. Held them to 16 points when they're averaging 31 a game on the year. Forced them into 3 turnovers, which is the most that they've had all year. And particularly that Peyton Wilson play, just ripping the ball out from Justice Hill, was absolutely ridiculous. They forced Derrick Henry into his first lost fumble in like 350 attempts. They just make plays nobody else does defensively. And you can look at it in any one game and say, oh yeah, that's not going to happen again. Maybe not to this extent, but it's like the Steelers do this shit more than anybody else. They are professionals at it. But I thought even more crucially than some of those arguably flukish plays that did go their way was just how they took away the ability of Lamar to create as a scrambler. Not just as a scrambler to run, as a scrambler to throw especially. I thought Pittsburgh was unbelievable in coverage. There were so many instances where Lamar would escape, right? He would work his magic. He'd get out of the pocket and there'd still just be nothing there. Nobody was open downfield. So they really limited this offense in a way that we haven't seen. And they did have some bad luck with the turnovers and the missed field goals, and they shot themselves in the foot with penalties. If this were a rematch, I wouldn't expect Pittsburgh to hold Baltimore to 16 points, certainly, but they did it. And in any one game, they're capable of disrupting teams defensively in a way that very few other teams, if anybody, can. Also, Logan, they have a brilliant head coach. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he is consistently so underrated. I think it is so impressive, regardless of playoff success, to win year over year like this in the NFL, especially when you consider some of the offensive talent that he's had in a league where offense has mostly been king for the last decade. And I thought in this game, he was just masterful down the stretch. Some of it's little stuff, but on the 2-point conversion, I love that he used that late timeout where Baltimore snaps the ball. They're starting to run their play. So you take away their favorite play call, which is huge on a 2-point conversion, right? You're going to bring out your absolute best stuff, and they couldn't go to that because of that. And then I love bringing out Justin Fields when you're trying to clinch the game and just get one last first down. And obviously you're going to keep the ball on the ground, and they go to the Fields keeper on 2nd and 10. That should have won them the game if Fields didn't slide prematurely, but it got them within a yard. Couldn't have done that with Russell Wilson on the field. I thought he outcoached Harbaugh. I thought his decisions late were pivotal in winning the game, as they were last week. Not as impressive, but we talked about it, bro. Send your offense out there against Washington. See if you can get them to jump. Get yourself a free win. That's what they did. Tomlin's awesome. I think that he's been really good with the situational stuff. I also just think he's such a great culture guy, and year in, year out, just an absolute monster. And the only coach, I would say, who is the face of their franchise in the NFL right now, and just the epitome of consistency. And Logan, I know, I'm sorry that I doubted the Steelers. I'm sorry I didn't pick them to win this game. I'm sorry I underestimated them preseason, but I love them, man. I love winning games with defense like this. I love Mike Tomlin, and they're always going to have their offensive limitations. And offensively, this game was pretty rough. You mentioned Russ being conservative. I thought in this game, it was a little too much let Russ cook, just in terms of him holding onto the ball for too long. He takes 4 sacks. He has the disastrous red zone interception where he's trying to make something happen, but that was very costly. They were 4 of 16 on 3rd down. They were 0 of 4 coming up with touchdowns in the red zone. It wasn't so much that they couldn't move the ball entirely. It was really just situationally, they struggled a lot. And George Pickens was phenomenal, but everything else in this offense was difficult, labored, but they still won. So when you talk about the contending status, the offense is what holds me back with Pittsburgh. We know their limitations. This isn't a game that like meaningfully scares me on that end with them. This isn't like an, oh my God, this offense is worse than we thought. I think their offense is solid. I think it's been solid. It's just there are teams that have that sort of high-end offensive firepower that I would bet on over them, but they are really, really good.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin's been doing this, bro. And it's weird to me this year that Mike Tomlin is getting Coach of the Year buzz. If you guys weren't going to give him Coach of the Year last year with Pickett, Rudolph, and Trubisky, I don't really understand it this year. This is the best quarterback play he's had. That's what I'm saying, is it's so narrative. I guess it's just narrative and expectations based. And I have never been Mike Tomlin wins games. Wow. Shocker, man. It's what he's been doing his entire career. Like,
it's different if you go 12-5, 13-4 versus if you're 10-7.
It's just not
negative point difference.
It's just not surprising to me. Mike Tomlin has these guys, and the thing that every player on the field is prepared. They know exactly 100%. What they are doing. They know their responsibility, and they all want to win. The one guy I have an issue with is Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is a problem right now. The guy needs to get his head out of his ass and focus on winning football games. I'm so tired of the penalties. I'm so tired of the after the play nonsense. Broderick, you need to get your emotions in check and play ball. Like that unnecessary. I'm sick and tired. Broderick Jones is the one guy on this football team that doesn't have his head screwed on straight and is not prepared to win football games. But he makes me mad. I want to give some credit to some of the unsung heroes of the Steelers, because we always give credit to the TJs and the Russes and the Georges. Peyton Wilson, that strip on Justice Hill. The Steelers traded Kenny Pickett for the pick that we used to get Peyton Wilson, and Peyton Wilson is a stud. He is a guy that fell in the draft because he had a bunch of injuries in college. The guy was a first-round talent, and he is proving it out there. And he's the Steelers' second or third linebacker where he would start on most teams because we have Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts. The next guy I want to give credit to, Nick Herbert, forces the fumble on Derrick Henry is like a little wraparound steal in basketball, right? When the ball handler blows by you, he just comes up right from behind on Derrick Henry and punches it loose. And it's the entirety of the secondary. Peasy Jr., phenomenal game. Dante Jackson, phenomenal game. Corey Trice is giving you big minutes when he's on the field. Like Deshaun Elliott, all those guys have been awesome this year. And Carson, you talk about the offense getting bogged down. I've been saying it for 2 years now. When your offense is struggling, and luckily the Steelers found this out, throw the ball to George Pickens. I texted you this at the start of the game. I would throw the ball to George Pickens every single play. My entire offense would be getting him the ball. It would be no fancy shit. We wouldn't be running any misdirections. I would just put the ball in George's hands. His name is George. The G stands for get him the ball. When you are struggling, do that. And that's what they did today. I'd say do it even more. 8 catches, 89 yards. At times when our offense was lifeless, he was the only guy. And credit to Theo, a friend of the show, Theo Ash, for throwing this stat out there. But it is a fascinating one. They had an EPA of 5.4 per play when they targeted Pickens. And they had an EPA.
Not per play, total. But
total. Crazy. Negative 21.7 when they didn't target Pickens. Like,
crazy.
He's such a big difference maker. And I just wish they'd do it more. GP's a freak, and everybody every week has this brand new revelation, this light bulb. Oh my God, did you know this Steelers receiver George Pickens is actually really good at football? You know, I think he might actually be really good. No shit, guys. George Pickens has been really freaking good every game since he entered the NFL. But he's had Kenny Pickett, he's had Mitch Trubisky, and he's had Mason Rudolph. And now you give him a guy that knows what he's doing. And shocker, he blossoms. That's the one thing I hate, Carson, is these brand new revelations that the Bills offense is good, that Josh Allen is the second best QB in football, that he's the MVP, that George Pickens is good, that the Steelers aren't a team in the gutter. No shit, guys. Have you been watching the games?
Well, it's infuriating to be as brilliant as you are, Logan, and it's a challenge, and it's something that you'll have to deal with for the rest of your life.
Just with Steelers.
They jailed Galileo. No, they jailed Galileo.
The Steelers stuff specifically really frustrates me, man.
No, I totally get it, dude. I totally get it. There are certain organizations that are just awesome, that are just extraordinarily competent. And I don't think that there's an organization with a more proven extended track record of that than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we're talking about not just the 6 Super Bowls all time, right? This entire century, they have been a average to great football team. They have never once been bad. They've never once been below average. Even when their point differential is, they're still winning at least 50% of their games. It's incredible. And I do think that they deserve a lot of credit and the benefit of the doubt, dude, for the foreseeable future. I don't know. You just keep thinking things are going to swing against them and they don't. And obviously they got a lot better this year, right? This is a more serious offense by far. This is the best defense. It's really impressive.
A little thing, too, about that, Carson, because not only has this team been held back by their offense, it's been like an anvil. It's not only held them back, it's dragged them down. And one of the biggest component changes this year is not only the brilliance of Arthur Smith and the brilliance of Russell Wilson, right? 2 guys who have been in the game for a while and done it and just know how to win. But it's also not when the offense doesn't score points, but the fact that they can sustain drives. The thing that was so remarkable last year about this team is that the defense was always on the field, right? They never even had time to have breathers. And just a little detail like that where you can buy your time for the defense to be rested, it makes all the difference in the world, man. And that's why preseason, I hate to get all preachy here about the Steelers, but that's why preseason, I never understood the skepticism because the difference in just from Arthur Smith, from Matt Canada, from Russell Wilson to the guys that we were dealing with, the team had been being dragged down by the incompetence of the offense. And now we're not. Like now they are working together. And I'm just so happy, man. And I wish I could be delusionally confident to the point where I come on here this year and say the Steelers are a Super Bowl contender. I just don't think they are. but they're trending upwards, and they impress me
yeah.
more and more every week. And this is coming from me as a Steelers fan who is skeptical every week. They've been super impressive, man. This is the most excited I've been about Steelers football in a very, very long time.
As you should be, dude. On the flip side of this, for the Ravens, it's definitely not a good game. I'm not too worried about their offense because of this game, because they obviously have an awesome offense. And as you mentioned, I mean, they come into this game number 1 in NFL history in yards per play, which won't be the case anymore, but like, that's unbelievable. I do think, though, when we've had these conversations about the best offense in football, this game shows you why I've considered Detroit number 1 and Baltimore number 2, right? Detroit is just an absolute machine. Not a lot has to go right for Detroit to hang 40-something on you, right? That's a pretty achievable thing for them.
They hung 25 in a 5-turnover game, man. The
Yeah,
Jets can't score 25 when they do everything right.
No. But the Lions are just so complete, right? They're elite everywhere, effectively, or at least very, very good. Baltimore isn't as complete. They do require a more exceptional play from a couple of players, and you saw some of the limitations of their offense. The Ravens receivers just got outplayed in this game, just soundly outplayed by the Steelers secondary, and Lamar struggled accordingly. And look, like, I wouldn't say that Lamar played an actively bad game today. The thing is, when you are as great as Lamar is, as great as a Josh Allen is, as great as a Patrick Mahomes is, the expectation is not that you don't go out there and mess things up. That very rarely happens, that you are actively the reason that your team loses the game because you're bad. The standard is, can you overcome? Can you right the ship, right? And Lamar wasn't able to do that today. So I do put that on him. But also, as we talked about, there was some weird shit. A lot of this game is just on Justin Tucker, who could you argue is a liability at this point for the Ravens, dude? I mean, he's a below average NFL kicker, right? Everything was weird today. Kickers were missing all day, but this is an extended track record of him being mediocre for the last couple years. And they had 12 penalties for 80 yards, and that set a couple drives back. It negated the awesome play to Nelson Aguilar. The one thing that I will say that isn't some of those oddities, and also just like an amazing Steelers defense, to give credit where it's due, I wish they could have run the ball more, because in 100%. Any game where the Ravens have fewer than 20 rushing attempts, I will not feel great about their chances. And that is a game script that, even though Lamar is improved as a passer 100%, is not optimal for them whatsoever.
And it's head scratching, right? Because it's not like this was a game where they were ever facing a heavy deficit.
Right. Not two scores down.
Exactly. It makes you think of the AFC title game when they don't put the ball in the hands of their running backs at all. And that works against Baltimore. When you can get them away from their identity and away from running the ball, no matter how good you are playing against them, that works in your favor. Anytime Lamar has to throw the ball this much, I think it's beneficial for your defense.
Totally. And they were super successful running the ball. They averaged 6.5 yards per carry, and that's skewed by a couple of explosive runs, but like, that's their strength. That's what makes them a great offense, and they just weren't able to tap into that today. And on the flip side, we just know that this defense isn't good. And that wasn't so much the problem today, but that's the reality with this team. They're definitely flawed. That's why they're my third team in the AFC behind Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to cut Lamar some slack, I agree Lamar missed some throws in this game, like crucial third downs where he's scrambling behind the line of scrimmage to find guys. He missed some throws. Zay Flowers has a really bad drop in this game. He's had a few bad ones this year.
Terrible drop.
Deontay Johnson misses the touchdown that it should have been. Like, Deontay Johnson has the route. He just doesn't hold his line up the sideline that well, just ends up missing him. So there are some things, again, the fumbles, the turnovers, the missed kicks. Not all of this is on Lamar, but Lamar didn't play an MVP level game, and those are his expectations. Not. That's his standard. And the defense is flawed. There are gaping holes in this secondary. They have taken a big step back from last year under Mike McDonald. And maybe a bigger issue that's being swept under the rug with the secondary struggles, this is an uncharacteristically undisciplined Ravens defense where every week there are costly penalties stacking up against them. And one of the components of that is the inexperience of some of the members of the secondary, but it's also veteran guys where you're wondering if it's a coaching problem with the Ravens defense too. So they're going to drop a little bit in my power rankings. They're going to drop closer to the Pittsburghs of the world.
Agreed.
They still have a leg up on Pittsburgh, but they are dropping closer to them. So, yeah, the Ravens are flawed, and we've known that. And the Steelers have their number, man. This is like 8 of 9 straight.
Impressive.
Lamar has more turnovers than touchdowns against Pittsburgh. It's the only team that has done that to him. And people are asking in the comment section, I saw earlier, well, how are the Steelers able to do this? They play great coverage on the back end. They force Lamar to be a passer, and they play QB contain. They don't let him get out of the pocket. It's like they're not going to rack up a whole lot of sacks. If you're trying to pin Lamar in, that's where you mess up as a defense.
Exactly.
When you try when you try to get him in the backfield and bottle him up, that's when he can get it. The Steelers don't do that. It's like playing chess. Oh, your opponent's an offensive player? We're going to make them play defense. It's exactly like that. It's the chess match, and the Steelers defense is so good at it, and that's where you need to give Mike Tomlin props. He's so good at game planning for specific individuals, specifically Lamar Jackson, and they do that really well. So I'm not jumping off the Ravens ship, but they've had more would you agree with this? I think they've had more bad losses than any other real contender in the NFL.
I agree with this. Logan, I was yelling at you about this 4 days ago. Absolutely, I agree with this. They've got some bad losses this year. The Raiders' loss was a terrible loss. The Browns' loss was a terrible loss.
The Steelers are a good team. This is a bad loss.
This is a bad loss because it's a lot of self-inflicted errors that cost them. But, the Raiders and Browns are bad football teams, dude. And those are losses that the other contenders we're talking about in the AFC haven't taken. So I'm with you. I think the Ravens are above the Steelers. They're not lapping them, though. And I've been lower on Baltimore than you. I've been more concerned about this defense than you've been. But I can just see, right, in a playoff game, it just takes a couple things going the Steelers' way. It definitely takes a couple of big swing plays, probably turnovers, but that's not out of reach for them, which I wouldn't have expected before the year, but definitely I would expect now because Pittsburgh's really good and Baltimore is flawed. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to talk about this Sunday night game, which was a ton of fun for everybody who stayed up to watch it and is still with us now. We appreciate you all. After some quick words from DraftKings. The Emirates NBA Cup is here. You can win big getting in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All 30 teams split into 6 groups every Tuesday and Friday, playing for the right to advance in the single elimination in-season tourney, culminating in the NBA Cup Championship in Vegas.
Get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the best place to bet NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking how many points your favorite player will have. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick.
First time? Here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Logan, one of the great debates of our time was put to the test today. It feels like we've been having Burrow versus Herbert conversations forever. Both awesome quarterbacks coming out of the 2020 draft class. To me, clearly for several years have been the 4th and 5th best quarterback in football after the big three of Josh and Pat and Lamar. And I've gone back and forth, honestly, on who I've had in the 4 spot, who I've had in the 5 spot. But it's Jay Herbo who gets the win today, not without a whole lot of drama, though. Let's start with the Chargers side of this, because we had somebody comment on the fact that the Chargers were 6-3 coming into this game. We haven't really talked about it much. They've been racking up wins, but they'd kind of been racking up wins, just taking care of business against some not so great teams. So I did feel bad that we hadn't talked about them more because I thought that they were definitely good, but also they hadn't really had that prime time, super big season defining win. They go out there and they get a big primetime win in this one. How legitimate do you think the Chargers are in these playoff conversations? And what did this game as a test say to you about them?
They're close. I mean, I think they might be better than the Texans. I
like them more than the Texans.
Pittsburgh's 4th. I think the Chargers are 5th in the AFC. And then the Chargers are slowly climbing into my top 10 of my power rankings. They may be 10 after this week. The Chargers have been at 11 or 12 for a long time, and this isn't the most impressive win. One, because they allow, all the points at the end of the game. And I don't think the Bengals are a real contender. Burrow and Chase are amazing, right?
Amazing.
But this is not like the most convincing win. But the Chargers are really good. The culture that Harbaugh has instilled here is really real. I like the foundation they have of the offensive line, 2 building block tackles. I like some of the pieces defensively, like Dian Henley. He has been a stud all year long. And they've got a guy who is a real difference maker at quarterback. They have Justin Herbert. He's the reason they win this football game, right? He throws a strike to Ladd McConkey to put them in within striking distance that leads to the game-winning touchdown. And Herbert's been playing. I know he's got turnovers in this game. Herbert's been playing like one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football this year, right? If we were going to rank them, Allen, Lamar, then I think it's Burrow, and then it's probably Herbert at 4. Is there anybody that you think I'm forgetting?
Those are my top 4. If we're just talking about performance this year, obviously
Exactly.
Patrick Mahomes to me is still QB1 in football.
I completely agree. But that's a testament to him, man. Herbert's been playing MVP football. He finally has a team around him. And I know the Chargers, in a lot of ways, to me, Carson, are similar to the Bills, right? A lot of roster turnover in the offseason. The Bills, obviously, a lot more expectations coming into this season because of how successful they've been over the last 4 years. And I was one of the Chargers doubters, and I was wrong. Harbaugh wins wherever he goes. And he's just I love when my leaders are positive, man. Harbaugh is such a positive guy. It's a little thing, man, but you can just have a positive mindset and reinforce things, right? Not focusing on negative plays or letting them linger, right? Negative play happens. Boom, that's out of my mind. I'm telling my guys, good job, good stuff. And again, it's not the most convincing win. Some little things go the Bengals' way, like McPherson also crapping his pants, which is so weird. But
he's had a bad year.
Harbaugh has done the impossible. He has instilled a culture with the Chargers organization, and it has meaningfully changed things. And for the longest time, I was like, dude, why didn't the Chargers get rid of Brandon Staley earlier? You know what? The Chargers may have accidentally lucked themselves into firing him at the exact right time when Harbaugh becomes available as a head coach in the National Football League. And they're here to stay. Harbaugh and Herbert is going to be a force to deal with, I think, for the next decade. And you have got, and it's the perfect combination to me, right? McDermott and Allen is a different case, right? Because I think Allen just enhances McDermott because I don't think McDermott's a good coach, right? It's like Reed and Mahomes, stamped. They're going to be here for as long as they want to be together. I feel that way about Jim Harbaugh and Herbert. I think it is a mutually beneficial relationship of guys that love each other, that enhance each other. And I think the Chargers are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And this happened a lot sooner than I thought. I thought there was a small percentage chance that the Chargers could do this, but I was late to the party. I had them winning 7 games, I think, preseason. I thought it was going to be an encouraging 7 wins, but this team looks like they're going to win double-digit games and be a contender in the wild card. I'll tell you what, right now, I don't want to see the Chargers in the playoffs. They have got a really good coach, a rock-solid culture, a good enough defense, and a weapon at quarterback. That's a team that can win playoff games. And so, to me, the Chargers are firmly in that Steelers tier of contenders. They're not going to go and win the Super Bowl. They're probably not going to win or get to the AFC title game, but I do not want to see them in the playoffs. I wouldn't want to see the Steelers in the playoffs with this defense. I wouldn't want to see the Chargers in the playoffs with Justin Herbert. So the Chargers are real. I think the Chargers are a real team. Now, I want to see how real they are. I want to see them up against some contending teams. Unfortunately, they've kind of got a little bit of a cupcake schedule. They have all year. But, we're going to see them against the Ravens very soon. We're going to see them against the Broncos, who I think are a good team, not a great team, right? But the Chargers are real, dude. And it comes down to Herbert and Harbaugh. And I like being wrong about the Chargers, man. I'm very happy to be wrong about this team preseason because they're real. The Chargers are real. That's my take, man. I want to see some more convincing wins, but hey, man, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. And guess what? For the most part, the Chargers have beaten those teams. So I think the Chargers are the real deal, man. And I think they're here to stay, Carson. I think when you've got this kind of stability at head coach, when you've got this kind of stability at quarterback, that's a recipe to be a really good team for a long time.
I love me a little Jimmy Harbaugh, man. You pull up in your khakis, you got your readers on, And he just inspires me, and he just
He's
makes
a
me want to
football
be
guy.
great.
He's a football guy.
He's a total football guy. And I love that they hired him. And I was higher on the Chargers than you in the preseason, but also I was like, can they figure everything out in 1 year? Or is this going to be a year 2 of the Harbaugh Herbert? Really just where we see the defense improve, but also I was worried about the weapons, right? Losing Keenan Allen in a weapons group that already wasn't great, not having Mike Williams in there anymore. And they've been super impressive. The thing that they have that the Steelers obviously do not is a war machine at quarterback, dude. And that's what Justin Herbert is. And it's just so crazy to me that in the big 2024, we still have to have some of these conversations, right? We still have to have conversations about actually, guys, Josh Allen has been amazing in the playoffs. His defenses let up 30 points per game in these clutch matchups. Historically, he's been one of the best per game playoff performers we've seen. We still have to have these conversations about, guys, Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback. He has been for years. The fact that he wasn't winning games is because he had one of the worst run games in football, one of the worst defenses in football, one of the worst coaches in football. He's playing at the same level that he has been. He might even be playing a little bit better this year, though. I mean, the numbers don't pop off the page, but the efficiency, the just elimination of mistakes, right? Not taking negative plays has been so impressive. But this game, he was just slinging it. I mean, the first half was just about as good a half as we've seen from any quarterback this year. And he just has such special raw arm talent. I mean, both of his touchdown passes are absolute ropes in this game. And the pass to Ladd to seal this game, I mean, that's massive. That's kind of off his back foot. That's under pressure. And it's just an absolute dot. So that arm talent is just unbelievable. His awareness, his ability to limit mistakes is unbelievable. But what I really like that we've been seeing from him as of late is using those legs, dude. Last 4 weeks, he's got, I think, like 170 rushing yards. And in the first 7 weeks of the year, he had like, or 6 weeks, I guess, 20 something. Like, Herbert has always had those A+ physical tools with the arm, with the size, but also with the mobility. But he's never been a scrambler, right? Certainly not like we see from a Josh or whatever. I like seeing him doing more of that. I know that he fumbles in this game, but that is just another weapon that it is very hard for defenses to account for. That can take him up a level because he has all the ability to be a top 3 quarterback in football. And I know the top 3 are special. Justin Herbert is one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever touch a football and is part of a generation of quarterbacks that I just think is extremely underrated. You know, we still have people doing this nostalgic. We used to watch gods play
Yeah.
on Sunday. It's
Yeah.
like, bro, the top 5 dudes are unbelievable right now. And this game shows you that. Both he and Burrow, I thought, were excellent. But Herbert's always been that guy. If you needed that to be cemented in a primetime game, there you have it. He was awesome. The question for the Chargers, to me, has just been how good is this defense really? Because they come into this game, the number 1 scoring defense in football. But you mentioned the cupcake schedule. Like, they've really only faced a couple good offenses.
Oh, and I also, I think I misspoke earlier. I think the Steelers, due to this game, I think they're the number 1 scoring defense in
Hell
football
yeah,
now.
brother. Hell yeah, brother. I was thinking about that when you said it, actually. This was more of a test because the Bengals, although they are a disgrace defensively, are a really, really good offense. I thought the first half was good from the Chargers. I thought that the second half was very concerning. And Jamar and T. Higgins can make any secondary look silly, but they made the Chargers secondary look pretty silly. So that's the thing. The numbers might say, oh, they have a Steelers level defense. They have a Chiefs level defense. I don't think that's the case. I think that they have a good defense. And then offensively, they have a top 5 quarterback who's playing at an unbelievable level. They've committed to running the ball a lot more, but it's still not a great run game. And I really do like Ladd, but the rest of this receiving core is definitely limited. Quentin Johnston's had a better second season, but he's still not my favorite. So I think the Chargers are definitely good. I still think I prefer just knowing that the Steelers can destroy games defensively and that they're solid offensively, but the Chargers aren't far behind because I really love Justin Herbert, dude. Like, he excites me in my loins.
Yeah.
And so listen, you give that guy a pretty good defense and a good coach. I like that formula.
Yeah, and the gap between them isn't is big because of Herbert. And I'm glad that you bring up the generational quarterback points, because another one of my takes from today's game is that I think Joe Burrow is one of the 15 best quarterbacks I've ever watched. I did a video on the top 10 best QBs, right? The guys that I would want most. And I caught flack for saying that Lamar, that Josh were already there. And I stand on that. And I think Lamar could be top 5. And I think Josh could be top 2. I stand on that. I think Josh Allen is that good of a quarterback. And if he gets the playoff success to go along with it, because he needs a Super Bowl. And, that's the next step. Is it to climb into that kind of tier? I do think that he needs one, right? Rodgers has one. Brady has 7.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be a classic playoff run. But Josh Allen is that good. And I think Lamar is good enough where if he got a ring, he could climb into that upper echelon. I think Joe Burrow could climb into the top 10 one day. He is that special to me. The next 5 guys off my list: Brett Favre, Big Ben, Kurt Warner, Matt Stafford, and Joe Burrow. And I know
This
there's
is peak we're talking, yeah?
Ability, talent, the guys that
Okay.
I would want to suit up most for me. And I know that we're going to get pushback because I had a lot of people comment, how did you leave John Elway out of your top 10? Oh, did you just forget about him? No, I think he's overrated. Oh, you left Terry Bradshaw out of your top 10. Did you forget about him? No, I think he's overrated. Oh, did you forget about Dan Fouts or Warren Moon? And when you're saying this, again, not that I want to get on my high horse here. Guys, me and Carson have an immense appreciation for football history. That's why these conversations are fascinating. I love me some Terry Bradshaw. I think to a lot of people, he's underrated. Like Carson. I think Carson underrates him quite a little bit. The guy could ball out on a Super Bowl level.
No. I'm just saying, he's not top 15 all time. There's no shame.
To the
Only
people,
15 guys are.
But there are people that argue him as a top 5 QB all time because he's 4-0 in the Super Bowl. And that's where I think it balances out. Joe Burrow is one of the most special quarterbacks I've ever watched. And it sucks because I have to strike this balance because some people overrate Burrow because he went to a Super Bowl before Josh Allen and because he got a playoff win over Patrick Mahomes when they gave all the attribution to him when his defense played great and his kicker had one of the greatest kicking performances ever and one of the greatest kicking runs to a Super Bowl ever. But Burrow is that to me. I've rarely seen quarterbacks that can manipulate and move within the pocket and have this kind of instinct and feel and presence and control at the line of scrimmage. Joe Burrow freaking scares me when he lines up, man. The guy is a playmaker, and he's top 15 ability all time to me. I have rarely seen this kind of control and feel and presence at the line of scrimmage. And in these last 2 weeks, Joe Burrow has given us 2 of the all-time classic quarterback duels with Lamar and now with Justin Herbert. And I don't know. Joe Burrow to me is like a Drew Brees. When I look at him in stature, I don't know if Burrow's ever going to get his MVP. I don't know if Burrow's ever going to get a ring because of his team and how great the quarterbacks he's being matched up against. I could see Joe Burrow having a very Dan Marino or Drew Brees-esque career where he gets one or the other and never gets the stuff, the worst one is the Jim Kelly. When people try to give me the Jim Kelly with 4 straight Super Bowls, and then I'm like, guys, Jim Kelly's overrated if that's a part of your argument. Joe is special. Joe is top 15 to me. I don't know if he's ever going to have the accolades that back it up to stats junkies, but ability-wise, I think Joe Burrow's there, man. And if you took Joe Burrow off the Bengals, they're one of the worst teams in football, man. And to the Bengals, Cincinnati, you guys were shit before Joe Burrow showed up, and you're going to be shit long after Joe Burrow shows up. So my recommendation to you, get him a defense and get him a defense stat because I don't know about you, man. I'd be pretty hot in my defense when I'm doing all this. Joe's been playing like a top 5 quarterback on the planet. I think he's been number 3, and he's been playing like an MVP guy. So I'd be pretty damn hot with my defense playing like this. And I think he's top 15 all time. What do you think, man? Am I too high on Joe already in the scope of history books? Where do you come down on where Joe ranks all time?
Not egregiously so. I mean, I'd have to probably think about the 15 guys a little bit more, but Joe's awesome. And look, I've been critical of Joe.
I didn't say
Otto. I mean, if
Graham
we're
or
including
Johnny
everybody,
U.
Bart Starr, right? Bart Starr is
True.
unbelievable. Johnny U, absolutely. Compared to his peers, basically nobody's ever statistically outpaced everybody in their era by more. I have been critical of Joe basically just through the framework of he's not the one-man offense that Josh Allen is. And he's actually not the playoff performer that Josh Allen is. And so many times over and over, people have said Burrow is better than Josh. To me, it's just not true. The ability to just single-handedly turn out a top 5 offense year after year, put up the numbers that Josh has. It's unbelievable. And I don't think that Joe is at that level of individual raw ability. But it doesn't mean that he isn't awesome and that he isn't absolutely a top 5 quarterback. In the last 3 weeks, he's been out of his mind this entire season, except for the opening week. Like, he has just been on a complete heater. So I'm with you. The Bengals offense is really, really good, right? Even with the limitations that they have running the football, just having Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Let's not undersell Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, because that's another advantage that Joe has had. I mean, one of the best receiving tandems in football for a long time now. I do think at this point, we're almost looking to the offseason for the Bengals, right? They're going to have a chance to win some games down the stretch here. They are sitting at 4-7, though. And the big question of the offseason is going to be, do they let T walk? And as good as I think he is, and he was unreal today, I think the answer is yes, because there's so much receiver talent. I don't think you can be paying 2 guys a premium price at that position while you are also as bad defensively as the Bengals are. And when you have as many holes as the Bengals are, draft receiver first round, but just get a guy on that rookie deal and figure your defense the hell out.
Didn't you think, I mean, it seemed like the Bengals defense was going to spontaneously combust. Like, I didn't like the guys looked frustrated with each other out there today, man.
Yeah, they've got bad vibes. Cam Taylor-Britt needs to shut his damn trap, but also, I mean, they've just been a bad defense the entire year. You've seen that every time.
Well, that's
they
what I
face
mean.
a
It
good
looks like
offense,
guys
they
are
get
at
lit up.
guys are at their wits' end. Trey Hendrickson is leading the damn NFL in sacks on one of the worst defenses in the league. Like, I'm just saying, like, at some point, like, guys like him, Trey's going to be like, I got to get out of here, man. You know, nobody else is pulling their weight. Like, it's got to be frustrating that you're this bad, especially for Joe. And again,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
people in the comment section right now are doing the attribution thing, guys. We have to be able to separate quarterbacks' individual performances from how great their teams are. And it's really hard. And I am normally of the fundamental belief that quarterbacks are always going to put you over the top, that if he's that great, he's going to win you the game. Sometimes it's not like that. Like, these last 2 games have not been on Joe Burrow whatsoever. This season, Joe is playing the 3rd best football of any quarterback in the league. And probably he's closer to Lamar. Like, Lamar's had some stinkers. Joe really hasn't had like a just flat out bad game, but
No, week 1, Joe was bad.
true.
And I mean, Lamar entered today on
As the
pace to
front
set the
runner.
passer rating record. And, you know, he's a better runner than he is a passer. I think
But
Lamar and Josh have been in a tier of their own, but Joe's been awesome.
Joe's special. Joe's special, man.
He's phenomenal, dude. And I mean, it's the most explosive passing attack, especially when you're just talking about the quarterback delivering from inside the pocket, not on broken plays. I mean, Joe throws such a pretty deep ball, but also like Jamar just makes people look silly and T makes people look silly. I mean, these are 2 A+ athletes and they just burn you. And that's what they were doing today. So it's the same old story with the Bengals, right? This is why we both before the year picked them to miss the playoffs. Their defense isn't good. Chase Brown was actually really good today, especially as a receiver, but they've struggled to run the ball. It's not a great line. Joe and Jamar do their thing, but it's just not enough for them to be a serious football team, and they need to make some big changes. I know that we've both talked about still seeing them as a potential front runner for that 7 seed, even with their record. Rest of their schedule, Steelers, at Cowboys, at Titans, Browns, Broncos, at Steelers. What are you thinking? Do you think they still have a good chance?
Denver, probably Denver. Denver was my second team, but Bo Nix, and somebody's saying we thought Bo Nix is trash. Man, I never thought Bo Nix was trash.
Oh, I'll eat that one.
I've been a Bo Nix supporter. He big baller Bo, man. I was all aboard the train, but
I definitely thought Bo was trash.
I like the defense. They're more complete than Cincinnati. I would rather see Denver in the playoffs than Cincinnati, but Denver's
100%.
a more complete team, and
Well, and
they're
they're
just
up
better
2
on
games
both.
in the standings.
Yeah, just better both sides of the ball, and they probably, I don't know, that the head-to-head matchup could go either way, but I'd probably take Denver.
They're not better on both sides of the ball. They are a more
You know
equally
what I mean?
calibrated team. They're better overall. To me, the biggest thing is just that they're up 2 games in the standings, and the head-to-head has a chance to swing that. I completely agree. As a Bills fan who very well may have the 2 seed and actually face whoever gets that 7 seed in the first round, like 1000%, I would rather see Bo Nix and the Broncos than the Bengals, even though I don't think the Bengals are a good football team because they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and they can just explode like that offensively. But also shout out to the Broncos, dude, because Bo balled out today. I didn't watch that game super closely, but he was impressive. The biggest thing is just he looks so much more comfortable. Early in the year, when I was being very hard on him, he just looked overwhelmed. I mean, right, there are multiple games where it's like this dude can't complete a pass beyond the line of scrimmage, and he was turning the ball over a lot. He is a significantly more composed quarterback today. And the Broncos offense, still not good. They've had a couple of explosions. I still think Bo's going to be probably the weakest quarterback in the playoff field, and the skill position talent around him also isn't very good. And that's a big problem, right? They don't have the horses to win a playoff game, but they're better than I thought. I do agree they're probably the front runner for that last wildcard spot, which is mostly just because their defense is legitimately awesome, and everybody else in that race kind of sucks, as we talked about all year. 7 seed in the AFC is not going to be a very good football team. I wouldn't write the Bengals off. I mean, that head-to-head game against Denver is really big, and I honestly probably would pick them to win that, and they've got some winnable games here. It's just tough. They've dug themselves a hole. They had to get this one or Baltimore, kind of, right? You have 2 games that come down to the wire. You don't get either one. That is very tough. Let's talk about another tough loss, Logan. The San Francisco 49ers lose to the Seattle Seahawks. Both these teams are now at 5-5 in the NFC West, which is separated top to bottom by a total of 1 game. On the Niners side, how concerned are you by this, Logan?
I'm not ready to jump off the ship. Like, I still think the Niners are a threat to win the NFC, but they're firmly in 4th right now to me, behind Detroit, behind Philadelphia, and I think they're neck and neck with Minnesota. And I'd probably give the edge to Minnesota right now. And that being is just they're just down a lot of key guys. Hargrave is not coming back the rest of this year, right? Brandon Ayuk is not coming back the rest of this year. They could get Dre Greenlaw back. That's up in the air. This game, I think Kittle leaves with a hamstring injury. It didn't look like that, that bad. I think he'll be all right, but he leaves this game.
Kittle didn't suit up this game.
Oh, Kittle didn't play. So, like, if I can never count the Niners out, but this is now their 3rd big loss in division. They've blown a 4th quarter lead in all of these games. They're just not as convincingly dominant as they were last year, and they are down some key guys. And the Niners just have to put up more points. They shoot themselves in the foot a few too many times in this game. The Purdy tip ball interception in their own territory leads to a field goal for Seattle. There's another possession where they're in the red zone, and they have a false start, then a sack, and then they have to punt. They have another possession where there's a holding and then a legal formation penalty that just gets them behind the sticks, and they have to settle for a field goal. And then at the end of this game, they have to sustain a drive after they force the turnover on downs. That's another big one to me. They're up 17-13 in this game, and they end up punting the ball back with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left, and Geno breaks out 2 big runs to put this game on ice. All of the Niners' losses have come down to essentially 1 or 2 possessions. The Cardinals game, the Niners game, the Cardinals game, the Rams game, the Seattle game here, all of them have come down to very marginal things, but they have blown them in all of them. And to me, it's not their reputation or anything like that, but the Niners team last year is winning all of these games. It's what they did. They're not as talented, they're not as healthy, and they're not as good as last year. And they are susceptible in a way that they weren't last year. So the Niners are still a threat to win the NFC. I have them above Green Bay, I think. And Green Bay's close. It's close with them in Minnesota. But
yeah,
the Niners aren't the juggernaut they were last year. And I feel like we've known that for a little bit.
We've definitely known that. I don't think that's been the standard. I think the standard that I've been holding them to really ever since they dropped some of these games early in the season and they fell to 2-3 was like, get into the playoffs, be playing your best football then, be as healthy as you can be. But I mean, now the question is like, are they going to make the playoffs? Because I've
True.
been of the mind that, yeah, the schedule's tough, but the division is right there for the taking. And if you just take care of business and you win the games that you should and you get to 10 wins, you're going to win the division. I like the NFC West. I think all these teams are super competitive, but there isn't a very good team in the division. And San Francisco is the only team with the talent to achieve that sort of status. But they're in a precarious spot now, man. This was not a game they could afford to lose. And as you mentioned, it's their third loss in the NFC West, where you are just like, what the fuck happened here? Like, how did you lose this football game? I'm seeing a lot of discourse about Shanahan's play calling, which is the least surprising thing of all time to me, that's where everybody goes right away. I do understand you don't want to throw the ball on 2nd and 11. That's fine with me, right? I do think people are kind of results oriented with that, but it's like, look, you're up. You don't want to stop the clock no matter what in that situation. Okay. But that's not what lost them this game. The problem is that with 2.5 minutes on the clock, Seattle has one timeout. You couldn't stop them from marching 80 yards downfield, and clearly just did not account for Geno Smith as a runner. I mean, it's Geno Smith's legs that kill you in this game. That's the reason that they blew this one. They didn't put up enough points to expect a win, though, right? I mean, you only put up 17 in this game, so it is on both sides of the ball, and they definitely felt the absence of Kittle. And CMC hasn't quite been his peak self in these first couple weeks coming back from injury, which isn't surprising. And the reality is, as much as many Niners fans would like to push back on this, Brock Purdy without a stacked group in terms of skill position talent just isn't that great.
I mean,
He's fine.
I thought Brock made some nice plays with his legs today.
I agree. And he has been all year, and he's fine. But my point is, when we're hearing about him in MVP conversations last year, that is a product of circumstances. If you are going to ask him uphill battle, go out there, win us a football game, I am not saying he can't do it. I'm saying he is not going to do it at the level of the elite guys. So all that was apparent today. And I do think that this team is in real trouble because the schedule the rest of the way is tough, dude. You go Packers, Bills, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. There's not a bad team in there. And I definitely think the Niners are favorites in 4 of those games at least. I mean, I would say Bills, Lions, those are really tough. Packers, they're on the road, so they probably won't be betting favorites in that game. But you probably need to go 5-2. You definitely have to win your remaining divisional games. I think that you have to get one of those against the Packers, Bills, or Lions. I do think the Packers are definitely the most achievable out of that group. And then if you do sneak into the playoffs, like, in my opinion, best case scenario, they're the 4th best team in the NFC. I think the Eagles are clearly better. They're more dynamic offensively and much better defensively. The Lions have been my NFC favorite. I still think the Vikings are just a more complete football team because of what they're doing defensively. And I kind of think it's like 50-50 that the Niners even get to the playoffs at this point. This was just a brutal, brutal loss for a team that is talented enough to where I've had faith in them, but they trimmed all their margin at the beginning of the year, right? They lost that all, and they had to win all of the games that they are expected to, at the very least, in the second half of the season. And they didn't do that in this one. They were in position to do so, and they blew it. And that's very costly.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. I mean, I think they got to be at full strength when the playoffs come around. I think you need McCaffrey, you need Kittle, you need Debo, you need all your weapons, you need all the Avengers, and they're just not scary. The Niners don't scare me the way they did last year. Like, the Niners, I didn't want to run into. They seemed like a buzzsaw. They were so talented everywhere. Niners don't scare me. And I wouldn't pick them. I would take the Lions to come out of the NFC. I wouldn't give them. And I agree with you. I think the Eagles are better right now. I think they're just more dynamic. Niners don't scare me.
Yeah, they still kind of scare me in the sense that I definitely think they're better than their record, but they're a really flawed football team, and they have to get healthy, right? Ayuk's not coming back, but they have to be mostly healthy. And if they are, it's still a really good weapons group because Juwan Jennings is a stud. Debo is a stud. I really like Pearsall. Kittle is a monster, right? They've got the pieces in place offensively. I do think this defense is just mediocre, though, and they're another team that's fighting an uphill battle. On the Seahawks side of this, all I really have to say is W Geno, bro. I love Geno. He's one of my 5 favorite quarterbacks in football. I don't care if that's irrational. He's just a dog. He throws a terrible interception in this game. Doesn't matter. He backpacks the team on his final drive. And the Seahawks are very solid. Anything on Seattle's side that you would like to add beyond just W's for Geno?
Word to Geno.
Word to Geno, bro. That is my guy. All right, we're going to take one more quick break for some words from our friends over at Via Hemp. Then we will be back discussing the rest of the action. As the crisp fall air rolls in and the leaves begin to change, don't rely only on pumpkin to spice up your life. Embrace the natural power of cannabis this fall season with Via. Whether you're lounging by the fire or exploring new adventures, Via's premium federally legal cannabis products are your perfect companion. Farmed and crafted with care in the U.S. and trusted by over 500,000 customers, Via has a product for everyone.
Via is well known for their premium THCA flower grown indoors in state-of-the-art facilities and harvested at peak THCA levels to emphasize a natural aroma and flavor. Via is constantly adding new strains to its website every week, as they're always receiving fresh new strains from their independent farms harvests. The THCA flower strains are grown with care and rigorously tested to ensure the highest quality, free from harsh pesticides or nasty chemicals. Via just launched their high THC flower in 7-gram and 28-gram bags and brand new flavors for the THCA vapes line, so you have more options than ever to blaze your own trail. Via is also well renowned for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies and vapes, soothing topicals, and calming drops, all crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. And the best part, Via legally ships to nearly all states in the U.S. in discreet packaging directly to your door and worry-free guarantee. No medical card required.
So if you're 21 plus, check out our link to Via's website in our description for 15% off. We here at NerdSesh, huge fans of Via, couldn't recommend the gummies more. Get a little Cloud9 in your system. You'll be feeling fantastic. As we mentioned, they also have THC-free options, natural, quality ingredients. So if you're 21 plus, check out the link to Via in our description and use the code NerdSesh to receive 15% off. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. This fall, enhance your everyday with Via. Logan, Anthony Richardson has been through quite the roller coaster ride this season. It's been topsy-turvy for him when he's been on the field. Then, of course, he was benched for Joe Flacco. Now he's back out there, and he delivers a win in his return as the starter over the New York Football Jets, who have very generously been handing out wins to their opponents all year. How impressed were you by AR back out there?
I was I think this is the best game Anthony Richardson has played at the pro level. The game-winning drive, throws a dot up the sideline to Pierce, and he has a rushing TD, right? First play of the game, Richardson, wide open bomb downfield to Downs on a corner route, picking between two zones. The biggest difference to me in Richardson early in this season and this season was he was decisive in throwing with confidence. There was no hesitation, no doubt. When he made a read, he made the throw, and he didn't wait. And AR throws with such velocity, man. He throws such a hard ball. But he was really accurate today. He was accurate, decisive, confident. He threw with timing and anticipation. And the drive that I look at, go back and look at the second to last touchdown drive. 8 plays long, 7 of them were passes. It was all Richardson. It was him doing it all with his arm. And he's doing some of the superhuman QB stuff today. It's not just the little stuff, the accuracy. He's throwing out of sacks. He's throwing accurately on the run. And I just got to apologize to Richardson. Like, his mobility and physical abilities alone, great through the air today. They make him better than Joe Flacco right now. The RPOs, the bootlegs, the rollouts. Flacco just can't do that stuff. The red zone. He's got 2 rushing TDs today. And the rushing gravity that you talked about when he was absent, that just helps Jonathan Taylor. Now, he's got to cut down on the negative plays. He's going to sack fumble in this one. He muffs a handoff with Taylor, but it's a phenomenal game. 300-plus total yards in this one, 3 total TDs, just 1 turnover. It's the best game I've seen Anthony Richardson play as a pro, and I think his little timeout helped him, man. Like, he looked ready. He looked ready to go today. And he looks like a guy that wanted to reclaim the job, that wanted to stamp his claim as this team's leader.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the reason they won today's game, bar none. Best game I've seen Richardson play. I was really, really impressed.
Best game that he's played, best game that either Colts quarterback has played. The benching pretty quickly obviously became a disaster. I was opposed to it, but when it became increasingly clear that like Flacco was also just worse now than Richardson, right? My thought was, okay, you get a slight win now boost. It's not enough to offset the other factors, but like Anthony Richardson just played a game much better than Flacco has this year, especially compared to what we saw from Flacco in the last 2 weeks when he was brought in as the starter. This was really impressive, dude. He was efficient. He was composed. He was accurate, as you mentioned. He made some big throws, one hanging in the pocket as it's collapsing around him to Josh Downs, as he's taking a hit to Downs. You mentioned a big throw on the run on third down, an absolute dime to Alec Pierce. The stuff downfield, he's always been capable of one or two of those a game, but it was a combination of being accurate on those throws and then also being much more solid with the short and intermediate stuff. And in the red zone, he's an absolute monster and just has 2 rushing touchdowns that really only like a Josh Allen is capable of in the league today, right? I mean, they're Josh Allen, Cam Newton. I'm 6'5", 240. I'm just going to carry you into the end zone kind of runs. And it looked like he had it all together in this one. And that's not how it's going to look every week. That has always been the reality with Anthony Richardson. And that's what was so shocking to me about how far some of the discourse went with him about the Colts making a decision like what they said initially was a season-long benching that thankfully ended up just being a couple games. It was the least surprising thing in the world that Anthony Richardson was raw and inconsistent and didn't complete a high percentage of his passes. You drafted an insanely athletic, super raw project who started 11 games in college and started 4 games last season. But there is so much talent there. There is so much ability there. And I said early this year, I think it is more likely than not that eventually they find that star ceiling in Anthony Richardson. Might not be next year. It might be 2 years from now, right? It's a project with him. It is a process. But the fact that people were acting like the ability wasn't there, that this was some unsalvageable mess, like that to me was crazy because he has
He's not Will Levis, man.
Tools.
He's not Will Levis.
He's not Will Levis, but also like he's just so much more of a freak than Will Levis. Like that's what you bet on, bro. Again, this is Cam Newton, Josh Allen athleticism.
He's a pretty freaky guy, man.
He's a freaky guy, but that's a different context. We're not talking about that right now. Anthony Richardson is a physical freak on the football field, and I am still excited about him long-term, and I'm excited to see how he looks the rest of this year. And I'm happy that he's out there because the Colts, they're in the playoff race, right? They're not a very good football team, but he went out there, he won them this game today, and it was the most encouraging performance we've seen from him. Maybe the timeout helped him, but also this was just in him, I think. And it's just going to be an up and down experience with him for now. But if you're the Colts, you got to ride it out, man, I think, because the ceiling with the highs is really, really high, and you just haven't seen enough to say, okay, we know what this guy is. You need to see more from him. Obviously, there's immense room for growth, but he has the ability to tap in to all of that growth. Logan, let's talk about another young quarterback. Caleb Williams couldn't get his Bears the win today, but by no fault of his own. In the most Bears way possible, Cairo Santos is blocked on a field goal at the end of this game, and so it is a Green Bay Packers victory. What did you take away from this one?
I mean, damn, dude, it's the best the Chicago offense has looked all season. It's a heartbreaker, man. They had 391 total yards. That's the third most for Chicago all season. They had 179 rushing yards with 5.3 yards per carry. Second most total rushing yards. Again, this is the team that ranks 28th in yards per carry. Most importantly, they were 9 of 16 on third down. This is the number 31 third down offense coming into this game, only to the Cleveland Browns, who are worse. Best mark all season. It's the only time the third down offense has been over 50% this year. And I was really impressed with Caleb. Caleb completed a high percentage of his balls. He was 23 of 31 for 231 yards, and he was scrambling his ass off. 9 carries for 70 yards in this one, and he led them down the field for the game-winning field goal. Like, Carson, on this last drive, it's a 3rd and 19 he's facing, and he converts to a 4th and 3 to a doomsday on both plays. Like, Caleb couldn't have done more. Do you want Caleb to get out there and kick the field goal for you too? Like, the defense played pretty well, and the offense played really, really well in this game. Green Bay just does enough situationally to win this game. They stonewall a Chicago drive with a sack. Jordan Love gives Chicago a TD off of a red zone pick, but Chicago forces a turnover on downs on Green Bay in the red zone. Like, they just don't do enough. They allow 2 swinging shot plays to Christian Watson, and they block the field goal. I just feel bad for Caleb and the Bears, man. They can't get out of their own way. And, like, this isn't even like a coaching issue. Like, there are plays this season that you can point to and be like, wow, 3 points against the Patriots. The Hail Mary where you got a player jaw-jacking with fans. This one's just one play, man. I'm encouraged by Caleb. I'm all aboard the Caleb hype train. Chicago's got to be cursed or something like the Jets, man. I can't figure it out, dude. There's no way they should have lost this football game.
Definitely cursed. 100% cursed. I mean, they have 2 of the craziest, most cursed losses of the season. But Caleb was great, and that's the most important thing for them, right? Because their schedule is so tough down the stretch that their playoff hopes, I think, have been squashed. You just have to win too many games against really good teams. But I think that they've had some really rough offensive performances, last week being the roughest, and this was a really good bounce back. Big thing, I thought that Caleb was decisive. I thought he got the ball out quickly. 2nd fastest time to throw in the entire NFL this week. That's huge from him. He was accurate. I mean, last week we can talk about the offensive line just getting completely overwhelmed, and that was a big problem. He also just missed some throws that he had to make. He didn't have that in this one, and he spread the wealth. He was working through his progressions, finding multiple different receivers. Phenomenal with his legs, which I love. If you're a young quarterback and you're an athlete like Caleb, lean on your legs. Like, yes, it's awesome for you to be able to dissect out of the pocket, but you're also trying to win games and you're trying to survive right now. And there's nothing wrong to me with early in your career making the most of your athletic abilities. And he did that in this game. And as you mentioned, awesome on 3rd down. Awesome. Just consistently composed, making the throws they needed, making plays with his legs. And the Bears went 3 of 3 on 4th. So across the 2, they effectively go 12 of 16. And on the final drive, he made big throws to put them in position to score. He played an awesome game. It's not his fault that he plays for a cursed franchise. And I do also want to shout out Thomas Brown taking over for Shane Waldron, who I think was a truly abysmal offensive coordinator. I thought that you had a less aggressively bad game plan this week, which for the Bears is just massive, massive improvement. How about the Green Bay side of this, Logan? What do you take away?
I don't know what to make of Green Bay, man. I really like Jordan Love. I really like Jordan Love's one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. Like, he's a playmaker. I love Jordan Love, man. He's awesome. I don't know, man. Green Bay's confusing, dude. I don't know where to put them in the. It's like their defense is good when they need to be, but they're not great. Jordan Love is really good 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time he's like, fuck it, man. I'm gonna just turn the ball over right now. Like, yeah. Green Bay's really good, but they're just not consistent. I don't know, man. Like, I like Green Bay a lot. I just don't know what to. I think they could make like a weird NFC title run. I really do, but I think it would take things really going their way. I think they're really good. I'm debating between them and San Francisco as my fifth team. I think the Vikings are a little bit ahead of them. Minnesota, Green Bay, and San Francisco are all like neck and neck to me. I think San Francisco's at the bottom of those teams, but they're all fighting. What do you make of Green Bay, man? They're one of the most confusing teams in the league to me.
I agree. Like, honestly, I would say that they've ended up basically as good as I expected them to be preseason, where I didn't view them as like the NFC front runner. A lot of people did. I thought they'd just be like good playoff team, good wild card team. That's where I am with them right now. I do think that Minnesota's better because I trust their defense a good bit more. And I think that they're right with San Francisco and like being these sort of flawed, inconsistent, not great defensively, solid defensively. I do really like their offense because I think LaFleur is great and I think they run the ball really well. And in this game, you just see the depth of the receiving core, right? I mean, you get a Christian Watson masterclass in this game. He has several explosive plays. And I really do like Jordan Love. I mean, he has some unbelievable plays with just raw arm talent, raw athleticism in this game. And he's so unafraid. But sometimes it's like, buddy, maybe be a little more afraid. Maybe be a little bit aware that like sometimes the ball actually does go to the other team. And with you, it happens quite a bit, actually.
He doesn't play like that at all, man, which is what's crazy. Is like him sitting back there. He thinks he is going to make every play, every throw.
He's never thrown an interception by his own stat sheet.
I kind of love his delusional confidence.
I like it a lot. And you know me, man. I'm pro playmaking. If that comes with some turnovers, so be it. But there is a line. And as we've talked about throughout this year, Jordan Love is very good. He is too far across the line, though, to be a reliably elite quarterback, right? He's thrown 11 picks in 8 games.
He's still
that
top
has
10.
To be scaled
He's still
back.
top 10, right?
Still top 10. Yeah. But there's a clear separation between we're talking about the Burrows and the Herberts, right? Love has the ability to be there, but he's not there yet just in terms of consistency and cutting down on the bad plays.
Tell me if you're with me. I go Mahomes. I go Allen. I go Lamar. I go Burrow. I go Herbert.
I might go Herbert, Burrow. I would go Herbert, Burrow.
Okay. Then I go Stafford.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then I think there's the drop, and then it's like
Stroud,
and then Love. Yeah, maybe Kyler. Yeah. Maybe Kyler.
I love me a little Kyler, but I think that Stroud and Love are both better.
And then I guess, damn, does Geno round out my 10?
Geno is close. I love Geno. It's so tough comparing him to like a Goff because one of them is in absolute hell where it's like, all right, buddy, here's the deal. Yeah, you're going to have 4 pass rushers in your face every single passing down. We need you to throw the ball 50 times a game. And then the other one, it's like, all right, Jared, hand the ball off to the best running back duo in football behind the best line. Yeah, and we'll just every once in a while, we'll get you a little play action. Jameson Williams will be wide open 40 yards downfield. Just try to throw it in his vicinity. But I do think that Goff is really good. It's tough. Geno has some backbreaking mistakes. But he's also makes some throws where it's just like, oh my God, just rips it 45 yards downfield. You're like, how'd you even see that? Why are you even trying that? I don't know. Maybe we'll do a top 10 quarterback episode soon. But I think that next tier is Geno. I still think Jaden is in that range. I definitely think that Goff. I think I would probably go Goff.
Okay. I don't hate that.
Because Geno's more of a playmaker for sure.
Goff's my next guy.
Purdy. Everybody will want us to mention Purdy. He's in there. T-Law, dare I say T-Law is still somewhere in these conversations. He's in a tough situation. But yeah, there's a drop off there. I think that Jordan Love is the last of a tier of the top 8 guys. Whoa. Dak is still in my top 10. I know he's not healthy right now. I mean, Dak versus Goff, those guys are close. I think if you put Dak in the Lions offense, they are 3% better.
Dak has dropped like a stone for me.
Yeah, he was bad this year, but it wasn't a very good situation. He certainly reached higher ceilings than some of the other dudes that we're talking about.
If they just close those damn curtains at AT&T Stadium, man, the Cowboys would be undefeated.
Dude. They would be undefeated. And if they turned off injuries, why did they have injuries turned on? It's ruining the season. Sad. Any final thoughts, Logan, before we go our merry ways on this fine Sunday evening?
Yes, if you did not catch it because it was not a good football game. Browns Saints was a fever dream of a football game. I just wanted to bring this up. It was like the Bizarro world. The game, I think, is effectively what you get if you take too much Benadryl. And it was like the Hat Man of football games. Because I know most people didn't watch it. I just want to give you a little rundown of some things that went down in this game. Jameis Winston threw for 400 yards, and they scored 14 points. Taysom Hill turned the ball over as a quarterback and as a running back today. Also, just like lined up everywhere.
Also gave me like 45 fantasy
Oh,
points.
yeah, he balled. DTR got some snaps at QB. Kadarius Toney was getting handoffs out of the backfield for the Browns. And the single strangest sequence of events I've ever seen in a football game, Carson. Dustin Hopkins misses a 32-yard field goal. The Browns get bailed out. There's a defensive holding penalty that gives them a fresh set of downs on this play. And he follows it up by missing a 27-yard field goal. It was – I thought I was seeing things, man. I thought I had been hanging out with Aaron Rodgers and we were doing various psychedelics, and this was the end result. This bizarro world football. It's the weirdest. It was one of the weirdest football games I've ever watched, man.
I loved it. Taysom Hill, one of a kind stat line. And you know what, dude? I used to look at Taysom Hill. I used to say, that guy, what is he? He's the epitome of white privilege. That guy gets paid so much money. He doesn't really play any position at a particularly high level. Now I'm just like, you know what, dude? It's awesome to have a guy who just lines up wherever. And he makes plays.
But it is kind of like, to me,
it's silly, but it's fun.
It's disrespectful. If you're sending Taysom Hill out there and he is dominating my defense, I'd be embarrassed.
He's also kind of a dog, though. I don't know. He's kind of a dog.
A little, I mean, for sure. He's a little crazy.
Yeah, I like him. I'm officially pro Taysom Hill. All right, everybody, on that note, appreciate you all tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, the good news is there's so much more NerdSesh content. We've got all of our NFL stuff. We've got all of our NBA stuff. That's on our YouTube channel, all of our full shows, which you can also listen to across all audio platforms. But on our YouTube channel, on top of our full shows, we have our video essays, our video breakdowns on the NBA and the NFL. Logan just did a video on Drake May. Go watch that. Stay tuned for more of our NBA content because we've got it coming in fast. And follow us across social. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and to see all of our trivia content and some of our original short form takes that we do just for social. And you can join our Discord. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios, as is the link to our new merch setup over at breakingtea.com. So if you want to get dripped out, you can check out all of that. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was NerdSesh.